Yo, what's up? Welcome back to the GodXP Podcast. This is the spiritual fitness podcast, the consciousness expanding, enlightenment increasing, best place for you to be, whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Music, or you're watching on YouTube. Welcome. We're very excited to have you. This episode is brought to you by GodXP. GodXP.com is the place for your hottest, newest, sexiest looking merchandise for summer. You want to look good, if you want to look great, if you want to show that you are on the path of self-discovery and enlightenment, you want to show your friends that you are more spiritual than they are, go to GodXP right now, buy your merchandise, look fresh and cool for the summertime. Also, the community app. Go to app.godxp.com to be a part of the community, to belong to the GodXP tribe officially, and to partake in all the awesome resources, meditations, yoga, all the great stuff we have in the community app. So check it out immediately. What else? Follow us on social media. You can follow me, Ampy Style, everywhere. We are GodXP everywhere. And one last sponsor, get your mojo back, the Depression Recovery Field Manual. Look, we all go through different things in our lives that cause shifts, identity, a demand of shift in identity. If you need help with that, this is the Existential Identity Field Guide, the Depression Recovery Field Manual. Become the director of your life. I wrote this book to help someone who was in a place that I was in, and well, here it is. It's for you. If you know somebody who could benefit from depression recovery materials, get them this book, and I will help you help others. GetYourMojoBackBook.com or Amazon.com, and you can get them there. If you want to listen to the audiobook, you can get it anywhere. YouTube, it's on Spotify Podcast, it's on Apple Podcast, it's on Audible. Listen to it, all right? So any way you want it, that's the way you need it. Today's episode, we've got the inimitable, awesome, amazing Miss Nyle Beck. She is an emotional intelligence coach, among many other things, and really excited about this conversation. It's going to be very, let's say, inspiring. Really excited to get into it. So without further ado, enjoy. See you at the end.
What if when you woke up this morning, you realized your entire past life had been just one dream?
You're one node in a network of 7.5 billion others. That network is interwoven with countless other networks on it.
You can say some words, and it can cause heaven or hell on earth.
To find others like me and help them become the heroes of their own lives.
Join us. Together we will find more power.
Join us. We are GodXP.
We are GodXP. Level up your spirit.
Together we will find more power. And I'm Anthony Polanco.
Okay, welcome back to the GodXP Podcast, everyone. Today we have Miss Nyle Beck in the place, and she is an emotional intelligence coach, along with many other things. I'm really excited to have you, Nyle. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing really good. It's let's see. So it's Tuesday today. What are some of the things that you have planned for your week? What are you working on right now? What is your main focus?
Ooh, I have a few balls in the air, and I am putting together some coaching programs for a few people. And I am doing a bit of Reiki on the side. I'm a Reiki practitioner as well. And I have several courses that I'm also taking. I'm one of these lifelong learners that's always wanting to take more in and learn more about the world and level up. So I've got quite a few things on the go. And then, of course, parenting. That's my numero uno job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's a full-time job in itself.
Yeah, it is.
So how did you, I guess, like, how did I guess the last year and some change affect like the way that you run your business and the way that you approach your practices, your multiple services that you offer? Like how has that had to shift for you in the last year?
Well, it it shifted quite a bit in the sense that a lot of what I do went virtual times 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
I was accustomed to teaching classes and coaching people live in person. And so I had to learn pretty quick how to get comfortable on Zoom or Skype,
Mm-hmm.
or a couple of other platforms. And I also found that a lot of people came into the DMs to look for help.
Mm.
A lot of people were going through a really tough time through 2020 with the shutdown and COVID. So I found myself helping a lot more people, like hundreds.
Yeah,
And it was pretty special. And then I also felt inspired to start doing podcasting myself. So I've dabbled a little bit in that and I'm continuing slowly.
cool.
So
So you started up your own podcast this past year.
mhm.
That's I Am My Best podcast.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. It's pretty raw and uncut. It's not too smooth, but it's like flow chats with people about what they know best.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's such a great opportunity to kind of just get well, I love the having a guest on and just what comes out of a conversation with someone, especially, in the case most of the time where you've never met before and maybe you have this similar field or similar interest. And I think just there's so much value in just listening to two people who have like minds from two different ends of the world or ends of the market, and just coming together and at least the format of
Agreed.
this show, it's been super helpful for me, and it's kind of one of those things where I envisioned if it's a helpful conversation for me, then it's going to be helpful for others who are thinking the same kind of things about life or in the same positions, so it's
Absolutely.
yeah, it's great. That's awesome. I'm glad you're doing that. And so how about with the Reiki practice? How has virtual Reiki been? Is that something you were doing beforehand, or are you kind of new to that as
I
well?
wasn't, you know what, I wasn't doing virtual. I knew of the concept and I had received distance Reiki, which was interestingly over the phone or just a pre-planned scheduled time where there was no contact, but I knew that they were administering it. For me, I shifted to doing it online where I actually have a Zoom screen and I can see the person and then they're able to experience it. And interestingly, like I was told it works just as effectively as in person. And I had a hard time managing that, how that would be until I actually started doing it and seeing the impacts and seeing some of the spontaneous healing that happened. I am doing a little bit in person and we're super COVID compliant in terms of all the restrictions and what you need to have in place in order to be able to do it safely. And I have been doing that as well. But the virtual stuff is amazing. It's surprising. You don't have to leave home. You don't have to leave your workplace or wherever you are, and you can get it done and you can start to feel better
That's really
pretty
cool.
quick.
I'm really
Thanks.
glad that's working out.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen it pop up a lot more, obviously, in the last year, people offering virtual Reiki, and I think that's one of the I think it's going to be a long lasting benefit to this whole situation, is just people realizing how much of their services and how much of their um of the things that they exchange with others can be done at home really quick while they're sitting at home, and there's a certain level of that human interaction that's super important that we're gonna miss and that we miss now, but there's also a lot of value add to just being able to help people from home. You don't even have to get in your car and drive for a few minutes
Yeah.
to get there, so that's good.
Yeah. Agreed.
So that's awesome. So how did you get into Reiki? Like I think it's still a pretty unknown thing. It's becoming more I guess it's becoming more commonplace to see for just and the average person. I think most people are starting to hear about it, but like how did you get your start in it, and where'd you find it?
Well, there's a couple of things to the answer to that. I started getting it myself from a Reiki practitioner probably about 10 years ago, when all of the sort of mainstream modalities of wellness were being exhausted. I was trying everything to try and reduce my chronic pain and reduce my sadness. I was going through a lot of difficulty in my life, a lot of challenges, and I didn't know where to turn next, because I was doing everything. I was seeing a psychologist. I was praying. I was going to acupuncture and massage therapy and my doctor. And, I was looking at every option. And then someone said, there are other ways. And your being has energy, and Reiki addresses your energy. And I didn't understand it a whole lot. I knew a little bit about it because I started hiring Reiki practitioners in another career path that I had over 20 years ago. But anyway, so I went and saw a Reiki practitioner, and then I started slowly but surely feeling better. The pain started going away. The emotions started to become processed and released out of my body. And I started to really clear past sort of traumas that I had experienced. And I did many years with a particular practitioner who really changed the way that I saw myself and felt about myself. And then, I'm very much about also science and intellectualizing things and processing things up here. But I also think, we can't ignore the other aspects of our lives, which include the heart and our energy and our bodies. So I felt like my pathway started as a personal trainer over 25 years ago. I was doing fitness with people. And then I started also at the same time learning about how adults think and how adults learn. And in my teaching practice, I started working with people, managing people, hiring people to teach other people in their particular area of expertise. And then I took a master's in adult education, and I really started teaching about best practices and all of these mindsets, and understanding people from the brain point of view. And then I had understood people from the body point of view. And then I started to move into emotional intelligence and became a coach, and started to understand the emotional side of our being. And then there was this one last area that I felt like I need to understand more. Like, I've done this Reiki, I've done yoga, I've done sort of the spiritual side of life, but I really still don't quite get it. And so I moved into learning how to practice Reiki and teach Reiki and administer Reiki on others. And that sort of like helped me see myself from a much more holistic perspective, and see our lives from a much more holistic perspective, to actually jump in and experience what working with our energy actually means and can help us do.
I see.
I hope that answers your question.
It does. Absolutely. Just connecting that, like, where you went from experiencing Reiki as a client, and then adopting it as like your philosophy, and trying to truly understand it. And that probably gave you more of like that, it sounds like it gave you that kind of like another spiritual awakening in your life that can kind of open your eyes to, like, or your mind, or yourself, your spirit, to the depth that there was that maybe you weren't aware of before.
It definitely helped with awareness. And I think we're all capable of so much. And until we increase our awareness through whatever means, we're just living with blind spots all over the place, and we're not fully manifesting and stepping into our power. And that is what I am most passionate about, is helping people step into their power. And when I learned how to do Reiki myself, that was the turning point for me that just like opened things up that much more.
Wow. And why do you think that was? Why do you think that was? Do you think it was the helping others, or do you think it was, I'm sure it was a combination of things, but was it like the inward reflection, or was it like just the act of being a part of the improving the collective consciousness?
Well, I think it's both. I think that one of my biggest struggles that I've had in my adult life is that I should say, was with my own boundaries. And so when I talk about boundaries, I mean not just physical boundaries of taking physical space from people that, you know, you need to take space from. Also verbal boundaries of knowing what to say and what not to say, and when to take a step back from a conversation, as an example. Also emotional boundaries, knowing when it's appropriate to be vulnerable, and then when vulnerability emotionally can bring you harm or put you in danger's way. But then there was also this energetic boundaries thing. And that I hadn't really touched on all of these years in my adult life. And so I had really figured out boundaries because I needed to, because I was without boundaries for so many years, where I just let people walk all over me. I got taken advantage of. I suffered a lot of things in life because of my lack of boundaries. And I kept thinking, there's got to be more. And when I started, to go into Reiki, I was able to get a handle on my energetic boundaries and really understand how we all allow energy in. Some of us are aware of it, some of us are not. And so on the one hand, like it was a turning point for me because it helped me sort of really, really become much more powerful from inside of myself and really understand things on a much deeper level. But also, like you were saying, giving back. I mean, that's what we're all here to do as part of the human species, right? We're here to be together and do what we're all each here in our uniqueness here to do.
Yeah, totally. And that's what I find
Yeah.
so fascinating. And that's why I wanted to have you on the show, and why the guests I pick, there's this place that people come to where the inward reflection becomes the I guess the enlightenment or the achievement of inward reflection becomes, I should be helping others. And that's a unique place where no matter where you start and where your original plan was for your life, certain people, I guess, experience things at different points in their life, but it always brings them to, I'm here to help others, and so that's really, it's fascinating how I guess, and like you said about the awareness thing, like as you come into your awareness, expanding your awareness in the areas of your life where you need the help, you can expand yourself where you're strong and positive, but eventually things in life start to point you towards the parts where you're weak, and so facing those things allowed you to transform yourself, and then in a way that brought you here to where you are now.
Exactly. Well said.
Yeah. So like, what are some of the before you decided to take on Reiki, like the studies that you were engaged in, the emotional intelligence stuff, was any of that pointing you toward the need to like have a more spiritual experience? Was it just kind of something that struck you all at once, or was it something that took a long time to kind of just realize that there was something a new depth that you wanted to experience?
I think over the course of my life, I've just had various points that have opened up my spiritual experience, to use your phrase. And I've always been open to it. I through school, I went with very much like a scientific mind, and always wanted to see evidence-based research and understand like the root causes of everything. But despite that, I was always open to experiences like just looking out the window and seeing a bird hovering, or a butterfly, fluttering, or a flower growing out of a crack in the concrete. I've always been, or an expression on my dog's face. Like I've always been connected with nature. And I think that's a big part of being spiritual, is being connected with nature. So there's, I guess where I started feeling like there's even more to it than that was, when I started having some health problems, I was able to experience healing that no doctor was able to help me with through meditation and breathing and emotional release. And I guess I'm veering off of your question a little bit, but another pivotal point was when I did learn about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence really, when you dig into it, it's about increasing your awareness of self and increasing your awareness of what's going on outside of you so that you can learn how to navigate both yourself and the world outside of yourself. And that's really aligned with doing inner work in spiritual practice and doing shadow work. In a lot of ways. I mean, the methods might look a little bit different. And we use, as an emotional intelligence coach, I use psychometric tools. But when I started learning that and integrating that into what I was teaching at a college, I was teaching about education best practices. So helping teachers who are working in the adult education arena teach the best possible way they can, reach the students, create environments that help them learn, and really increase the absorption of the information and broaden the experiences. I added emotional intelligence into that, which integrates things like mindfulness. It integrates things like optimism, which to me is like one of the most important things we can have. It just started changing my experience as a teacher. And then when I started to dive into emotional intelligence and assess myself and work on myself, I started to really become more connected to myself. And when I became more connected to myself, I started to feel better about myself. And, and I had it all. Like, so I thought, I've got a house, I've got a family, I've got everything I need. I get to go on trips and I make money and I there's nothing really missing, but there were times in my life when I felt things were missing. And when I dove into emotional intelligence and I really got reconnected to who I am, on a much deeper level, I found that everything just felt better and I felt whole again. And the thing is, I always was, but I really felt it. I finally felt whole and worthy again. And, we all have hangups and things. I don't have hangups anymore.
Yeah.
I let everything go. It's like, it's a miracle. It's a beautiful way to live. And so I'm in it to help other people get there.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, there was certain phases in your life, like even in childhood, like you see these connections between yourself and the universe or God. And then you find something that you need, like let's say it's meditation or yoga, and that gives you a new depth of understanding. And, some people will say that meditation is all you need. Some people will say yoga is all you need. Say expanding the mind, intelligence is all you need. And these things come to us at different phases in our lives and give us the enlightenment that we need at that time, that you can study academically or scientifically and observe in your own life can also be an enlightening thing, and the thing that you need to kind of be that consciousness expanding a solution for you in a certain time in your life.
Absolutely. And I love learning. Like I love learning with my mind. But I'm also a kinesthetic learner and an experiential learner. So as much as I love intellectualizing topics and just going on and on and on and on about it, our human lived experience is much more than just our minds and our learning. So we feel with our hearts, we feel with our bodies, we experience things at much deeper levels energetically that just can't be conceptualized as easily. So, yeah. Yeah.
And it requires development. If there's something missing, if your life's not making you happy, then there's a certain level of development that can be, whether it's mind, body, or spirit, like you said. And that level of like awareness, just awareness, and having whole awareness, having an appreciation for your life, the things of your life requires awareness. The more unconscious you are to your living, it's like you're living with horse blinders on, and you can only appreciate such a small thing. But the more you become aware, to even physical awareness, you're aware of your your surroundings and and then your emotional awareness of how you feel, and your spiritual awareness, your connection with God. These things, the more you expand your awareness, which takes active willpower, the more enlightened you become to the beauty of the life playing out before you.
Yeah. And the more connected you are to it all. And the more in the driver's seat of your part in all of it you can be. It's very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's what we all want, even on unconscious levels, is more more of an active role in the direction of our lives, to feel like we are,
and it can be scary.
Yeah, to feel like we are divining it, and that we are at least a co-creator in the story of our lives.
Yeah. I'd like to think that we're co-creating every step of the way. And maybe it's more we're being supported in it somehow. And it can be scary. I started to go down a road, and I don't know if you want to go down that road, but the more aware you become of what's out there and what's in here, it can be like, oh, wow, I got a lot of possibilities here. And the unknown is really, really scary. And the level of awareness that you can achieve can be like, exciting. And then when you start stepping into it, it's like, oh, I have to really level up and do way more to be able to really live this much more powerful existence.
Yeah.
So there's work to be done to be able to continue on the path of awareness.
Definitely. It goes back to the old expression, ignorance is bliss, like as soon as you become enlightened, awakened to a greater potential for yourself, you can no longer go back to in that place in your mind where your subconscious will always be pushing you toward that thing, because as soon as you become awake to it, by definition, you can no longer forget, that there's this longing to be someone or something a little bit better, or a little bit fulfilling a divine potential.
Mm-hmm. So true. Well said. Can't unsee what you've seen.
yeah. That's the gift and I guess curse of growing up and becoming more I guess more aware of life, and
yeah,
it's something that we all need in order to grow, which is our greatest desire, or to expand. But it's like a medicine that's bittersweet.
it can be. And I think that was the hook for me with emotional intelligence learning, because it gives so many tools on how to navigate it and how to level up and still be on solid ground through the unknown. There's so many cool tools that are available, but you have to have access to it. You have to know about it. And yeah, so that's why I'm spreading the word. And that's why I tweet a lot about it, and, starting to move a little bit into Instagram space and share that with people. So it's important that we have tools to be able to figure it out, and supports.
Something I have written down in my morning journal is just one person today, one person every day, do something, create a piece of content, or just walk out your front door. And if I can just help one person today with a video, or with a tweet, or an Instagram post, or even just walking down the street, then my job is done, because that person can help someone else that day. And you don't know the effects, the long lasting ripples of the actions that you perform in the universe, and so surely doing one thing, like posting a tweet, that's how I found you, was just on your Twitter. Just someone retweeted you, and then I followed you because I saw a long stream of just awareness expanding, positivity spreading tweets, and that's, I guess, that's what I look for in others, because it's inspiring, and it it's encouraging to know that there's other people out there trying to help others. Thank you.
That's what I'm here to do. Just want to help people be their best.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I think that that really shines through in like what I've seen from you online. And it's the common denominator in people who just putting out things to help others, not for your own benefit, but just knowing that positivity spreads and it is as infectious as negativity. And if you don't do it, then who will? And if you don't do it today, then when? This is your opportunity to make a difference in someone's life, and that common denominator of just helping others for the sake of making the world a better place is kind of, that's what's magnetic about you and all the people out there there's a certain beauty to that selflessness.
Yeah, it's a pretty feel good. It's a win-win. I mean, I'm not going to lie. It feels really good to help people. And I didn't at first know the part about Twitter that I would be necessarily helping people. It was initially just this, I have this voice that I need, with things inside of me that I need to share with people. And it was always like just downloads of things that would just come and I would just tweet them. And then I guess it just, started to get out there organically and it was wonderful. But I always wanted to help people feel better about themselves. I mean, that's initially, I was just pulled and drawn to be a personal trainer and help people with their fitness and their health. And I moved into a specialized area of working with the seniors population. And I was finding myself, I mean, it was never about money. I was finding myself spending, hours and hours with each client, just like sharing information and learning from them because they'd lived these huge lives, these long lives, and they knew so much wisdom. And so it was like this, it was just like this space of helping them feel better about their bodies and their capabilities, people 70, 80, 90 years old that I was working with. And then I just kept going with and then I started teaching people, well, how can you be better at this? Like, how can you be your best at this? Because you're great. And what do you want to do that can really make a difference? And how deep can we dig to help you do that? And it's just it's been an ongoing push throughout my life to try and just not push, pull. It's been a pull to really help people be their best and shine. And I always feel best when I'm just encouraging people and telling people how great they are, and really digging into who they are and going, look, and that's what I kind of say is what I do as a coach. I kind of go I'm pointing towards your heart and I'm pulling. I'm going to pull everything out, go into your heart, go into your soul, go into your mind, and then boom, here's your mirror. This is what I see. I don't think I'm projecting. Maybe I am, but this is what I see that you're putting out there. What do you think of that? I think you're pretty great. And where's the stuff that you maybe want to do better on, where you're not feeling so good about yourself that you're putting out in the world? And nothing gives me more pleasure than to help people face themselves and level up.
Totally. That is, and I think there's a certain level of it's reciprocal altruism, because you're benefiting from the change, the positive transformation you see in other people's lives. It's a good thing. It's a good thing to be in a position where you help people and it's like you're having fun. It's not like you're working. It's the sign that you are living your purpose, because if someone loves to paint and they spend all their time painting, they might feel guilty. I'm not working. Where's my wrench? And why am I not sweaty at the end of the day? But that's their purpose. They were meant to paint. And so helping people is yours because it makes you feel good and you're good at it, that, you're also good at it. And because it's your purpose, all that positive, you're sowing and reaping positivity with your life.
That's very kind. I appreciate your kind words, but I will say also, I think that every person's purpose is helping others. I really do. I mean, the artist, you're among other things, you're a musician. I mean, these expressions of our humanity help people immensely. And we each have a unique way that we get to express what we're here to do that actually will help people. And a lot of it is we're helping ourselves at the same time that we're helping people. And I think everybody's truth and authentic side is really, there's no side to authenticity. Sorry. People's authenticity is what helps the world be better. It really is. I mean, whatever that looks like.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of existential guilt people feel about living their lives, whether they're in a job they don't like or they're in a job that they love. You know, there's a lot of like, should I be doing this? Or even if it's not work related, just like, am I being a good enough parent? Am I being too selfish with my time? You know, and that can really affect people for long periods of their life. And then the unintended consequences, the negative side effects spill out into the rest of their life and kind of water down who they are and who they could be, all based on an internal dialogue, you know?
Yeah. Well, the internal dialogue comes often from external programming, right? I mean, a lot of people are in this world thinking that they've got it wrong because some external voice told them so, and or because their parents put them down, or because a boss didn't like it. I mean, there's a lot of healing to be done in this world to get outside of that, and there's a lot of unnecessary guilt that people take on because of these stories that we believe about ourselves, that we don't deserve to be happy. There's this strange thinking out there that we should suffer in order to be rewarded in life. And I think that's backwards. I don't think that's where it's at. I think we're meant to thrive, to be able to do our best. And we've got some work to do on this planet to shift the thinking and shed the guilt and the other lower vibrational, emotions that people seem to stay stuck in.
Yeah. Yeah. Rather than dive into like where it came from or why we think that way as a society, I think it's a more productive use of our time to just help educate people on an individual level about just like what's going on inside and kind of what's a better way of just looking at your life on an individual level. There's a lot of problems, systemic problems with our society, but like it's a cliche, the old adage of like, what happens to one person, what's happening in one person's life affects everyone. And I think on an individual level, that's what the coach is here for. That's what coaches are here for, is to help people on an individual level. That's something I really admire about the work that you do.
Take that next step.
Yeah.
Thank you. My job here is to help people decide how they want to live. What's the next step you're going to take? Because is this the life that you're enjoying? Like, that's really the best use of your time, that's making you feel better about your life? Because this is the only life we know that we got, for sure. So what's your next best step? Yeah. That's where I come in.
And like, some people are fortunate. I think for a long period of my life, I was so unconscious to the fact that I could change and that I could get resources, get help that would help me change the parts of my life that were making me unhappy. And so I feel very fortunate to be someone who came to that awareness, that came to realize that there was a problem to be solved and not that just life was terrible. And so there's a margin of society that doesn't even know that change is possible. And so I think that's a big reason why we do this kind of work, why we post stuff online and why we have podcasts, because there's people who are getting help, people who are actively changing their lives. But then there's a large margin that we drive next to in our cars every day who have no idea that change is possible. They were born with a miserable situation and never had a single glimpse of light to say like, hey, there's a way out. You don't have to be like this. You don't have to suffer unconsciously your whole life. And and so that's why we do it, right?
Absolutely. Awareness is so key. And there's an image that I use in a lot of my courses. It's like a pie, and there's like 3 pieces to the pie. And I mean, most people have probably seen it by now, but it's like, there's a little sliver in that pie of like, what we know that we know. And then there's a much bigger sliver that's what we know that we don't know. Like, we know that there's stuff we don't know, but then the biggest part of the pie is the stuff that we don't even know that we don't know. And it's the truth. And so the more that we can get out there and help people, not to say that I know a whole lot, because the more I know, the more I realize there's so much more I don't know. But the more I know, I want to share that. I want to make sure people understand that there's more to know, so that you can shift the way that you're living, the way that you're thinking, the way that you're processing your emotions, the way that you're experiencing your relationships and the choices that you're making. It doesn't have to look like it looks necessarily. It can be better if you're not happy. It can be. And just to provide people a glimpse of the possibilities that start from within is really a gift to be able to help people with.
Yeah. And a lot of, I guess, the quotient that comes back the most often is happiness. Like what it's hard to tame the uncontrollable desires that are always changing. And we want to continue to live a life of achievement, but yet there's a level of happiness that it seems like we're all missing to some degree. And the game of life is, how can I be more happy? The chase is happiness, and we look for it in different things. And it can be found right now with whatever you have, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a certain developmental difficulty around happiness, I think, that we're all working on.
Oh, I would agree. And for me, I tend to discern between happiness and joy. And I agree that, like, part of the point of life, a big part of the point of life, is to be happy. And if you are cultivating joy from within, because that's where it all starts, I think you get to experience many, many, many more happy moments, and you come to value what that actually does for your lived existence. But I think that if you're not cultivating joy and you're not valuing what that actually can do, because it's infectious. I mean, when you had joy inside and you're sharing moments with other people, you're spreading joy and you're creating more happy moments. And the more you do that, the more, in psychology, it's called developing a disposition or an affect state, where you live more of your moments in happiness or in joy. And to me, happiness is a little bit more of it's a timed experience, where it's just like, this made me happy. I feel happy right now. Whereas you can cultivate joy, where it's kind of like there all the time, where it's like you kind of embody a lens through which you see the world that gives you this way of being optimistic in the world. And that makes all the difference in life. And again, it's about awareness. It's about knowing that you can actually live different. You can actually be happy more often. You can actually cultivate joy from inside of yourself and do whatever it is you're doing, even your boring responsibilities or the things that you feel obligated to do, the things that you have to do that maybe you don't enjoy, because we all have that too. You can actually be happy in those moments where you're like otherwise kind of bored or irritated or frustrated or just plain unhappy. It's a process, and it's a practice. It's a practice, and we get to choose, but not everybody sees that there's an option there. Some people believe that, oh yeah, I have to do this job because there's no other way I can make money to pay my bills. Well, okay, that's one way to look at it, but what are you learning? What are you getting out of this? What are your options? Can you do something different? I mean, and that takes awareness to be able to get to that space and start to enjoy life a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. The inner narrative that it's hard to, you can never see out of it while you're in it, but there's a shift that needs to take place, I guess, in your inner narrative. If you're struggling with any one thing in your life that you say is unchangeable or unknowable, there's the ego that's constantly telling you what you're hearing, and it's narrating your life, and so that's why having you would be really helpful. You know, having a coach to kind of just say, hey, this is what you're telling me. This is the data. And so I'll show you that data, and the bias that you're trying to fit that data through will either survive or it won't survive, you know? And so, like you said earlier, like you have them tell you everything about their life, and from their mouth and their filter, it doesn't sound like anything spectacular. But from your perspective, you can actually hear what the spectacular things are, because they're saying it as though there's nothing spectacular about their life. But everyone is unique. Everyone is the expert of their own experience. So like you're able to see what's going on in their life and say, hey, look, you said this, you said this, you said this. And then also on the other hand, the biases, and you're able to say like, look, yes, you're in this situation, but it doesn't necessarily mean what you think it means, because look at all this information over here. That's like your authentic self. That's unique to you, that you could actually be enjoying and benefiting from in life, you know?
And if it's a challenge, using it as a stepping stone to level up and do something even more amazing than you're already doing. And you're bang on about it. It's inner dialogue. And like you said, it's like, there's the data and then there's the dialogue, and that's the story. And how's that story serving you? You know, sometimes you need to review that story, because thoughts strung together create stories, or as I call them, mental models. And I'm in the business of deconstructing mental models and bias to help people see through a different lens, perhaps, that might serve their lives and the world around them better. We deserve that.
Yeah. And that's a really pragmatic and helpful description of the work that you do. I think a lot of people struggle with like the woo-woo-ness of going to a coach. And the practicality of it is, we have these computers that need to be defragmented and that need the operating system worked on sometimes. And we can run programs that don't serve us for years and years. And so the mind coach, the mental coach, the wellness coach, they can help you reset the hard drive, like, and install a fresher operating system to help your mind help you within life, live your life.
Yeah, it is. And it's getting rid of the viruses in the computer, you know, because that's where we need to, reprogram what's going on up there sometimes, in order to be able to get through life better. And you're right. It is, as a coach, sometimes, you know, connecting the dots for people and helping people understand the benefit of even going to a coach versus someone else is, well, we're here to help you, you know, take your next step to manage your stress, to improve your relationships with others and yourself, to help you really be in the driver's seat of your choices in your life and the things that you say to people and the way you communicate, and help you feel better about you. Yeah. There's a lot of bonuses, but I'm going to keep doing it no matter what anybody says about coaching and woo-woo-ness.
That's good. No, it's important. And it is becoming more commonplace and more, like, I guess, accepted in society, the mainstream narrative of society, that like the mind is an important thing to pay attention to. And that's a really positive thing. You know, let's say emotional intelligence is there's an increasing awareness to emotional intelligence today. And I think the average person is hearing more about, especially with mental health and the narrative around mental health, they're hearing more about that there are options to change your mind, and that those things will improve your life. And so I think the collective consciousness is becoming increasingly aware to the benefits of working on the mind.
I think so too. And it's being integrated. I mean, you can see it's scaled up into corporations. Like, loads of corporations use emotional intelligence assessment tools like the ones I use in order to figure out how to best assemble teams and how to choose the best hire for a particular position, and help to troubleshoot issues going on within the workplace, help to increase morale. And there's like return on investment kind of data that you can see that, so that's the corporate side. But then also, as you say, the mental health side, I've seen the work that I do be integrated into hospitals, into the mental health departments of hospitals and mental health professionals. One of the tools that I use, an assessment tool, is used by psychologists, and it can only be used by either psychologists or people trained with the certification that I have. And the benefits are just like limitless. My life turned around after my first assessment. It really did. And it wasn't that bad, but it has become infinitely better as a result of diving into emotional intelligence.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. And that's important also to note that, like, it's not just for when you're at the end of your rope in a certain area of your life. It's a margin of unconsciousness that we're living in with different categories of our lives that can always be improved.
Always, 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 till the day we die. Yeah.
This was great. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was great. It was really great to chat with you. I'd love to learn more about what you do next time. We'll get you on.
Absolutely. That'd be awesome. I'd love to be on. That'd be really cool.
Thank you. I'm so honored. I'm really grateful.
Yeah. So where can people find you? I know that you've got a really active Twitter engagement, Twitter following, and Instagram. Are those the two best places? And where are some other resources that people can get more from you?
Yeah, for now, those would be the two best places. My website has been under construction for way too long, but we're working on it, and I'll be integrating my blogs, and I do send newsletters, but I have what's called a link tree, like a link in the bio of both my Twitter and my Instagram account. And I think also on Facebook. I'm pretty small there. But I think that's the best way. People can click on the link in the bio to have a free consultation with me to see if what I can do for them is a match. I do podcasts as well. And like I said, newsletters and blogs, and all of that are in the link in those two places. And eventually I'll get my website up. That's awesome. I'd love to hear from people. Yeah, I'm here. I'm here for people.
Yeah, you're great. You're great on Twitter. You're great on Instagram. I love following you. You're one of my favorite follows. So I'm really glad to, I hope a lot of people, everybody, not miss Nyle Beck. I am my best today on Instagram and Twitter. We really appreciate you. Follow her. And we'll definitely have you back on the show soon. You have me over there, and we'll be in touch.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Thank you. We'll see you soon. Okay. Bye.
Yo, that was awesome. Great episode with the amazing Miss Nyle Beck. Follow her on social media at I Am My Best Today and get a hold of her. Wow, that was great. So really excited about some of the things that I learned. Just kind of to touch on them, the things about like the self-analysis and just constantly keeping a tab on like your internal dialogue, and also like fostering joy in your heart about everyday life, and just about the gift of life itself, and cultivating a spirit of joy, if you will. I guess sometimes I forget to like just enjoy it, and because I'm so focused on like how can I expand and how can I create and give back to humanity and all this, and that can create a lot of tension. The unfulfilled desires create tension, and so make sure the voice in your head is creating a positive environment for you to live in. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think. Send me a message on Instagram, Twitter. Get in the community app and message me there. I want to hear some feedback on these shows, and especially this one. So that's it. I'll see you in the next podcast, and peace out. Be blessed, man. Always move forward. Continue to expand. Continue to realize yourself, and that will be the way. Okay? Peace out.